So, just move this over here. I always have to compose myself after that. So, remember who you are month. You know, there's a lot of ways to remember who you are. And I think as I left here 2 weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago, I was planning to go to Guatemala to do something, to give, to bring something to these children and to where I was going. And of course, remembering who I am, knowing who I am, what I'm doing there. But now this is my 3rd time going. We've been going for 4 years. It was a different experience this time. I don't know why, probably because I'm a different person. We all keep changing and growing and expanding. And what I wasn't prepared for was remembering who I am because someone's showing it to me. And I decided that I wanted to start my talk off with some pictures. And Robbie, if you could. This is where we land when we get to Guatemala. Hotel backpackers. And hotel is a word that they use lightly. This is a beautiful picture of it, but I can honestly tell you, as Reverend Jonathan knows, and how funny I ended up in that same room we were put in the first time we went. I think it hasn't changed. I think it's everything the same we left 4 years ago. And this is, you fly into Guatemala City, and then it's a 6 to 8 hour bus ride into the rainforest to get here, which is where they drop you off at Hotel Backpackers. And then from here, you stay here, and then every morning a little boat picks you up and takes you 15 minutes further into the rainforest to land at Casa Guatemala, which used to be an orphanage, is no longer an orphanage. It's now a learning center for that whole rainforest community there. Most of the kids go home, but a lot of them are dropped off and left there for 4 or 5 months to be educated, just because their parents can't afford them. But they're not orphans. They have moms and dads. They have to live there and be educated. The living conditions are very humble at best. But when I looked into the eyes of the children, I remembered who I was because they were showing me. And I thought that would be a beautiful way to start this, for you get to look into the eyes of some of these children. The little kid that had the straw, he was literally climbing up through my legs because I was playing the guitar. And I managed to stop playing the guitar, grab my iPhone, and take a picture of him as he came up. So thanks, Robbie. That's good. Unless you want to accompany my whole talk. Robbie Gilman. So Heather's lyrics. You are the light of the world. You are the joy of the earth. You are the love of your life, so remember who you are. I look at those children, and that's what I see. I look into their eyes, and when they look back at you, the unqualified and unconditional love they give. You know, you land on this island and at the Casa Guatemala, and there are 400 kids just running all around, having the most amazing time of their life, like just loving life. And they gave me this time a beautiful room to teach in. And what I do is I teach, even saying this is so ridiculous, I teach English, hardly. I teach English, and they teach me Spanish. I think they do better at learning the English than I did at learning the Spanish. But what I do is I take a song there, and usually I teach them the English to sing. And I always wondered why they seemed to be so kind of a little like non-energetic when they would be singing the song. Jonathan and I would work with them, and I'd be like doing like cartwheels to get them to have energy. But I suddenly got it, because they're singing words they don't know what they mean. So they're like singing, you know, I'm at home in the jungle, and they don't know what they're singing. So this year, what I decided to do was teach them the song in Spanish, which meant I had to actually figure out, I had to learn how to teach it in Spanish. So I had this great Angie Pena with me, and she did the Spanish because she's a Spanish teacher. So we would sing, instead of I'm at home in the jungle, it was Estoy en casa en el sabre. I think that's right, something like that. And then all of a sudden when they would sing it, that is it. What do you mean no? Estoy en casa en el sabre. That's it. Isn't that it? Oh, Selba, that's it. So let me tell you a little story. I don't know what it was, but I was teaching some line. It was something, it was the coche. It was coche, I'm at home in a car, you know, también in a stuck car, whatever that was. And I said something instead of coche, and I apparently told them that they were at home with their cockroaches. And so you've got this whole classroom, and they're all like, Estoy en el sabre. No, what is it? Selva. I don't remember the second line. Anyway, all of a sudden, they're all like really animated, and all of a sudden I said, you know, en la coconut, whatever I said, and they all just went. So there's nothing like seeing that happen, and then I turned to Angie, and she's just like, what did you just say? But their faces, they're these loving faces, just wanting to not really be taught. They just wanted to love me. They just wanted to have this great time being in the room with me and Angie. And so we got all these gorgeous classes. But I will tell you this. So the room they put me in, La Bibliothèque, that's library, correct? See? So it was a beautiful room. It's right as you arrive. You can see that picture. It's right on the water, and it's got 4 windows. It's a beautiful view. But the room was just, let's just say, a little dirtier than I like it. And so I decided one of the things I should do this year is clean. I should clean and go around and clean things. And so I cleaned the room. I swept it, and when I had a break in between classes, I'm sweeping, and there's tons of books with no rhyme or reason why they're on the shelves, and they're just a mess. So I'm like taking them out and getting all the books together, and I make the room really beautiful, and I'm so proud of myself. And then a room full of, I think that was when I had the first graders. So there were about 50 of them at one point. Now they lined up very beautifully in the hallway, as if there's a hallway in the piece of wood they stood on. And I open the door and I say, come in. And oh my God, my beautiful room. First of all, as you know, I put all the chairs in a beautiful little semicircle so they could sort of surround me. Within seconds, they're dragging chairs to sit next to their friends. And I'm like, and someone taught me, I said, tell me how to say, don't move the chairs. So I did know how to say that at one point. And I'm like saying, you know, no move the chairs. In Spanish, I just don't remember what it was. And the dirt from their feet and their shoes all of my clean floor is now covered in dirt again. And they're all grabbing books down and throwing them at each other. And I was like, and Angie was so great because Angie just sat there. She was like, whoa. And I thought to myself, okay, so the universe is saying to me, we are going to work on your control issues, James. Because there was, how many of you have little control issues? You all do, I know most of you. So I got it. I was like, you know what? So I'm going to just clean the room. Every time they leave, I'll clean it again. And they'll make it dirty, and I'll clean it again. And I got better, really better at not being so controlling. I stopped saying, don't move the chairs, because don't listen to me, so why bother? And so then later in the week, someone asked me what my favorite moment was. And I have to tell you, my favorite moment actually was after a class, everybody left, and I was alone, and everybody left, and I was just sitting there, and I grabbed the guitar, and it was one of those moments when a song just came through me. And you'll hear it sometime, but this beautiful song just came through me, and I started playing it and singing it, and it was about 20 minutes it took me to really write the whole thing, and the view was spectacular, and I got the whole song done, and I'm so full and so emotional. I'm feeling so great about everything. I'm just feeling so great about life. And I turn around, and I didn't realize that one of the little preschoolers, kindergartners, whose picture was on remember the little girl that went like, she was quite I don't know if you ever met her, Jonathan, but she was there last year. What's her name? Rosalie, that little, she was just like a firecracker. And she's like, she was just really energetic. Nora said we should adopt her, and I said, not happening. So she had hidden in the corner. Now this is a girl that can't not talk for about 2 seconds. And she sat quietly for 20 minutes and watched me write this song. And when I write songs, I do them out loud, and I talk to myself, and I scribble things, and I write new lyrics out. So I spent 20 minutes doing that, sitting at the desk, doing this. And I turned to move the guitar, put the guitar up. I turned, and she was sitting there, and she just looked at me, and she went, and I just want to tell you, I've been on Broadway, in case you didn't know. I've been on a Broadway stage. I've stood on a giant dime and had 2,000 people cheer when I finished a tap number. And I don't think I ever felt what I felt in that moment when these two big brown eyes looked up and just applauded, not me, applauded the creativity that had just come through me, that mesmerized her enough for her to be quiet and listen to this the whole time. And you want to find out who you are, really remember who you are? Pay attention to the eyes that surround you, to the people that surround you, to the loves in your life, the way they look at you. Without words, pay attention to that, because that to me was the most profound moment in that entire week. I have a quote for you from Carl Jung, and it's this: one looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. We appreciate those that teach us, but we have such gratitude in our hearts for those that make us feel. He goes on to say, the curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but warmth is the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. We have an opportunity in this center, and as this center grows into an even bigger center, we have an opportunity to take this teaching in another direction. I think in the direction that Ernest Holmes meant it to go in the first place. Just like I think Christianity has an opportunity to take Christianity in another direction, which is what I believe Jesus actually had in mind all along. Not to start a religion, but to teach love. And that is all about this. It's all about feeling. Ernest Holmes says that treatment, which is prayer, using your mind, using your thoughts, using your words, bringing forth what you know, that treatment is activated by feeling. Without it, it's just a bunch of words that we use. We just use these smart words, and we're very cerebral in the way we do it. But you put feeling behind it, you put emotion behind it, you tap into, you do what Heather Powers does. You sit and you use words like fractal in a song, which is pretty amazing. Although someone corrected me because I said this morning, I don't know, who would ever put fractal in a song? And someone said, Frozen. Apparently Frozen has fractal in a song. Won the Oscar. See, what great, you're in great company. But if you can tap into that emotional reservoir that is within you, really tap into it, and then speak your word from there, that's how this teaching really works. And it's how you work your life, how you change your life. So I think we have this opportunity before us to take this whole teaching to a much deeper sense of feeling and emotion. And I think that's going to change everything. So the title of my talk today is Get Your Butt Out of the Way. And that's butt with one T. Get your butt out of the way. And I want to tell you where it came from. So when we first get to Guatemala, we go to Antigua to rest up for the week ahead. We get there at a certain time. We go to Antigua. We have a lovely evening, and then we get up the next morning and drive on a bus all the way into the rainforest. So we're on top of this rooftop in Antigua. It's a gorgeous restaurant rooftop for sunset. And we're having some margaritas, and I'm having a conversation with Jose Pena, who's one of our members that brought this project to me, Jose and Scott. And apparently, as I'm having the conversation, I'm using the word but a lot. I'm saying blah, 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 but, and every time I do, Jose says, and. I'm like, oh yeah, and this happened so many times, I wanted to kill him. By the time he did it about 30 times, I was like, why do you keep correcting me? And he was like, because every time you say but, you're stopping the conversation, you're stopping the flow of your mind. And I was like, oh, you are so right. That's the title of my talk. Get your butt out of the way. And all of a sudden, I grab my phone and I start texting Barbara Shane, here's the talk title for 2 weeks from now. And that never happens, does it?
No, but now I know why there was a typo.
Are you talking about the margaritas? Yeah. Yeah. Did I put butt with two T's?
No, you said if the way instead of...
Oh, I did, yeah. So, get your butt out of the way. And I got it. And that took me into the whole week in Guatemala. Because what I realized was, how many of you use but in your conversing? So you're going to hate me because I'm going to ask you now to spend the rest of the month paying attention. And if you're in a relationship or a marriage, feel free to tell your partner every time they say the word but. It helps my marriage counseling business. And so Kevin, you have permission to, every time I say but, to correct me, okay? And do I have your permission to do the same?
I never do, but sure.
He is pretty perfect. So, because when you say but, what you've done is you've started the flow and then you've cut it off. And now you're going to backtrack. You're going to say but, and you're going to give yourself reason to negate what you just said. Now, it's so funny because Eric Bork, many of you know who Eric is on our board, he's a practitioner student. Eric said, but what if I say a negative thing and then say but, and then say a positive thing? Only Eric would find a way to literally negate what I was trying to say. But someone said, but instead of saying but, you could say, however, and go on. So I'm going to suggest that we eradicate the word but for the rest of this month. You with me? Okay? And recognize in yourself when you say it, why you're saying it. Find out how your mind works. Really get started in looking at how your mind works. So, back to Heather's lyrics for a moment. Come to the mystery. Give up the stories you've known. How many of you are still telling your stories? You don't have to raise your hands. Oh, thank you for sharing. Are still telling the stories that you think define you. You know, if we're going to spend a whole month remembering who we are, let's forget who we think we are. Let's forget our stories. Let's forget all the stuff that we have said, this is who I am, and actually let something else come through. And by the way, the buts, that but is your story. Because it comes from you thinking you know something. And what we have the opportunity to do for the rest of this month is to do this. The path now collapsing, leading us all back to one. The path now collapsing. I love that she wrote this, that the world just crumbles at our feet, and I'm still held up. So I have this story about another moment in Guatemala where I finished a class with the kids, and everybody was going off into the forest to a store. Who would think there's a little store, little grocery store in this? And I say it that way because literally it's nothing but dirt roads and lots of trees and things. And so I said, I'll follow you. I'll come right afterwards. So they all went, and then I decided to go. And what they have there are like bags, like baggies filled with like lemonade that they've crushed, or crushed coconuts that they've put chocolate on. So it's really, and apparently they had beer. I just remembered, because I never found it. So I go on this path, because there's only one path, and there's a lot, you can't really get lost, I thought. So I go on this path, and I start walking on this path, and I'm walking, and I'm walking, and I'm walking, and I don't see anyone, and they haven't left that far ahead of me. And then all of a sudden, there are 3 paths. You know, there are 3 roads to take, and I, of course, took the road less traveled. No, I thought, well, this is the one that looks like everybody goes down it, so surely it's this one. So I took it. And it wasn't. I just kept getting further and further and further, and I didn't share some of the things I came across. I did come across a wild pig eating with its children. Its little piggies, and a wild boar, whatever they're called, but it was close to me, because it was like really close to the path, and this mother pig looked up at me, and I swear I could read its mind, because I swear it said, take 1 step towards these children, you're dead. Because it looked at me like, I can't even do what it did. And I thought, all right, well, could a pig really kill me? Maybe, who knows? But my life always unfolds perfectly, so I was good. So I just kept walking, and I never found this place that they all went shopping at. And I was lost on the path in a rainforest, and wasn't exactly sure. I figured the only way to get back, just turn around and go back past the pigs and just go back. So I did, but then I thought, I'm just going to take this other path. I thought, well, it's got to be one of the other 2. And I hear people, but I couldn't see them, and I was not about to step off of the path, because God knows what was living in there. So I finally decided to take this little path, this little piggy, and I ran into a hut that a big family was living in. You know how Los Angeles is like, you don't really like people to come visit you unannounced? Do you notice that in Los Angeles? How many of you here are used to people just showing up at your house? I find in Los Angeles, even people I know, friends I know, if you show up at their door unannounced in the middle of the day, you get like a, hi. Did we have plans? Am I right? Maybe you have different friends than mine, but I just find that. So imagine if you are a family of like 12 living in a rainforest, and all of a sudden someone just shows up at your door. Literally, the people that were in there were some kids and some adults and a grandmother who had nothing on but a tiny little thing covering her genitals, but everything else was wide open. And I walked up, because I thought maybe this is the store. Maybe it doesn't look like Ralph's. I don't know. And I just walk up and I put my head, and they're all chowing down at something, and they all just like looked, and I looked at them. I think I said hola. I've learned that, Orestes. And all of a sudden they just all smiled, and they were eating something, and they all just held this thing up to me. I'm sure they looked at me and thought, skinny, he needs some food. And it was hot, and I was like just I was drenched. And I just, I gracefully said no. I've learned not to eat the food that my body hasn't ever tasted before. But I got to tell you, in that moment, again, remember who you are. In the midst, literally lost in the wilderness, here are these people whose first instinct was, what can I give you? How can I make you feel comfortable? How can I love you? And I was really, really, really touched by this. And I finally just made my way back, and the path now collapsing, leading us all back to one. We think we know our paths. We pick paths. We look for our journeys. We go to workshops to find our path, to find which journey is right for me, which road is mine to take, where is my purpose in life. And I got to tell you, all of that just came collapsing down on me during this week because I suddenly started questioning everything. I was questioning religious science. I was questioning Christianity. I wrote a text to Kevin at one point, and I just wrote him this text, and I said, I feel so inadequate here. And it's not that I don't know who I am in terms of what I bring to the party, what the talents I have, but I just felt so inadequate because there was so much that I perceived that needed to be done. So much that could be done, so much more that could be given, so much more that could be expanded on. And then I got it that it's not about any of it. It's not about any of that. It's not about how much can I give, how much can I expand on. It's really just how much love am I willing to give, and more importantly, how much love am I willing to receive? Because I don't know about you, but if you surround yourself with 400 little ones that are looking for nothing other than for you to hold them or to smile at them or to play the guitar for them. It's so funny. Every time, no matter where I walk, somebody go, cantare, cantare, which means sing, right? Yeah. And I would just burst out into song, and I would start singing in English, and they would start mimicking me. And that just felt so, this is who we are. This is who this planet would be. If more people walked around doing that to one another, imagine what our world would look like. I said this morning, if only they got this at the summits, and they just started looking at each other with those eyes instead of what can I get. So Maya Angelou said this. She said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I may not remember the names of the children up there, but I see their faces and I remember how they made me feel. And as we move into this new understanding and this new, this integration of Westlake Village and Global 2 Center, becoming Global 2 Center, we have an opportunity to not just become a bigger center, but we have an opportunity to take this teaching in a new direction. And I do mean in a new direction, because it's been way too cerebral for way too long. And we have got to find the feeling. We've got to remember the heart. We've got to remember who we are. And we have to remember it at such a deep, primal level that that's where we come from. It's not about getting up and giving talks. It's not about, treating. Here's the perfect 5-step treatment or 7-step treatment if you need to bring the crap in and then you got to clean it up, right? Y'all know I don't like those treatments. But it's not about all of that. It's about who has the feeling, who has the emotion, who is tapped into something in them that is so primal, so authentic, that when you speak from there, as Jesus did, I would imagine, when you speak from there, they only need to touch the hem of your garment because you are so full with who you are that it's contagious. And then the belief in what's going on transforms everything. But you can't just talk about this stuff. You have to be willing to live it. And I don't think you need to go into a rainforest to find it. I don't think you need to get lost to find yourself again. What I do think we need to do is start looking into one another's eyes more. We need to connect more. Really connect. And not be afraid of what we see. Because if you are coming from love, you can look into someone's eyes who is very afraid and you will transform them. You truly will. It just depends on where are you coming from. So, in conclusion, this month, I really want you to pay attention to that one thing that stops the flow of this, which is that word but. Just pay attention to that and see if instead you can include something and allow, as Heather talks about, allow the mystery to take charge. There's a lot of mystery in the world. There's a lot that we don't know, and yet there's a lot that we don't know that we know. Because remember, this is Remember Who You Are month. It's not find out who you are. It's not go search it out. It's remember. It starts with an already established premise that you know who you are. Somewhere inside of you, you know. You do. You just know. And that's really what happened this week for me. Because time and time and time again, some child would look up at me and I could hear, I could feel at the core of my being them saying to me, I'm the same as you. We are one. I could just feel it. And sometimes they would hold on to me like there was no tomorrow, and they would just hold on to me. And, it wasn't pleasant weather. And as they're holding on and they're sweating and I'm sweating, there was a moment I thought to myself, I have no idea who I've just become because I know who I thought I was, but I left there very changed. Final story for you. When I left, I leave on Friday at 10 o'clock at night, and then I told you it's a long trip. But what happened at 10 o'clock at night was they brought forth something for me to go to the airport in with me and my daughter and Rachel Bork. And I can only lovingly say it was a death trap. And it was this like tin, I'm sure it was really a car somewhere in some lifetime. And I just looked at it and I was like, oh no. And my first thought was, I'm going to be that American that says, I can't drive in that. And so I said, I can't drive in that. But I got into the van. They said, just check it out. I got into the van, and my claustrophobia went nuts. And I was like, and it's a 6 to 8 hour drive. And I get into the van, and there are no seatbelts. That was my first thing. Well, no, my first thing was the look of it. Then there was no seatbelts. And I said, is there air conditioning? And they went, yes. I said, does it work? They said, no. Well, thank you for being honest on both parts. Because they could have just stopped with, yes, there is. And it's broken. So I got out of the car and I just said, can't do this. I can't drive in this. I said, I did this last year in a gorgeous Toyota, beautiful car that took me, but even then I was scared to death because it was like 90 miles an hour around curves that you are dead if you miss it. And I said, that's just not going to work. I can't do it. There's no seatbelts. They said, well, we can go get seatbelts and have them installed. I was like, no, it's not going to happen. I said, so let's figure this out. They said, there's no other option. You just have to wait and change your air tickets. And I called Delta, and they were like, we're pretty much sold out for tomorrow's afternoon's flight and Sunday morning's flight. And I'm like, well, whatever. And then they came up with another option, which was the woman that runs the place, Heather, her boyfriend, who's this big strapping South African, I think, cop. He actually runs a plantation now. He offered his beautiful truck that has Bluetooth and air conditioning, really nice, and their driver, who didn't speak English, but their driver. So we get in the car at 10:30 finally, and we drive. 2:30 in the morning, we're stopped dead amidst 100 or so trucks and cars, and they've closed the roads until 4 in the morning. I was like, okay. And I kind of just drifted off and tried to meditate while I was breathing all the fumes of gas from all the trucks and cars. And 4 o'clock, sure enough, all the traffic starts up again, and in like 5 minutes it stops. Because all the cars that have been waiting are now trying to get around each other and have created such a jam of trucks and cars that no one can move. It's like everybody went like this, and no one could move in either direction. So, and the people are backing up and they're beeping, and it's 4 in the morning. My driver starts going up the side of the mountain and then back down through these cars. Nobody cares what side of the road they're driving on. And I am, thank God, sitting in a seat that has a seatbelt. And I am just like, wow. And I guarantee you that this is exactly what I said. Mama, my life is unfolding perfectly. My life is unfolding perfectly. I look in the back seat. Nora's sound asleep. She can sleep through anything. But Rachel Bork is wide awake, and she just looked at me, and she said something like, I forget how she said it. She said, "Are you treating?" And I was like, "I've been treating since 10 p.m. And yes. And so we're going up and down these mountains and curves. And at one point, I had to really pee, and we were stopped. So I go to get out of the car, and Rachel's like, "Where are you going?" I said, "I have to pee." She goes, "Well, just don't take 3 steps. You'll be off the mountain." And I looked over, and I literally was like this side of a mountain. I still managed to handle it. So we finish all of that. An ambulance tries to get through, can't. When it finally gets through, my driver very smartly follows the ambulance through, and we get out. And then we keep driving. We hit Guatemala City at rush hour. My flight's at 7:50. We hit Guatemala City at 7:15. Do y'all know what it's like taking an international flight? So I get to the airport at around 7:25, and everything's closed. Delta's gone home. The gate, everything's closed. I tell the kids to stay there. I run upstairs. I bang on the Delta door. They open the door, and I say, "I have 3 tickets on the 7:50. I need to be on it." And the guy was like, "Well, we really can't." And I said, "Let me say that again. I have 3 tickets." And he just looked at me, and he was like, "Okay." And he got me. Everything he flew us through everything. We get to our gate, and he says, "Just so you know, if your bags don't make the airplane, we will remove you from the plane because your bags can't stay here without you." I was like, "They'll make it. We'll be fine." He goes, "But if your bags don't make it, we will remove you." All I hear in my head is, "We will remove you from the plane." So we're now in the plane. We're sitting in our seats, and all 3 of us are just like waiting. We're watching the clock. We're just waiting, and it's like 6 minutes before the plane takes off. And all of a sudden, they close the door, and we back away. Now, the reason why I tell you this story, because I like to tell you how horrific this was, juxtaposition that with all of those days surrounded by all of that. It's not surprising to me when you have to remember who you are. You have to remember who you are through all of it, not just this part. And I have to tell you, there's no way I should have ever been able to get on that plane. There's no way I should have been able in Guatemala City airport, where I don't speak English, I do, I don't speak Spanish, where I should be able to literally somehow get through baggage, through security, through all of it, and get on that plane and make it back here with my luggage showing up as well. There's no reason why that should have happened, except there is. Because I managed to remember who I was throughout all of it. Even as it was happening. I wasn't just saying I remember my life is unfolding perfectly. I actually was meaning it. I got it. And I was okay if I had to stay there 3 days. It would have been annoying, but there would have been a reason, right? So I bring this up because I want to let you know, remembering who you are isn't just when you get to sit with Heather and listen to her tap into your deepest soul. It's when you are at the DMV trying to get them to fix your whatever. It's through all of it. So that's the journey you're on. That's why you chose this teaching. It's probably why most of you chose me as a teacher, because I'm not a walk in the park as a teacher. Anybody know that? Y'all know that, right? Because we can up our game. So this is the month to remember who we are, not just in the fun times, but in the challenging times as well. And to remember that when we remember, you get to do the things you want to do. You get to live the life that you've only imagined. You get to change the course of how your life is going when you remember who you are and act accordingly. Yes? So, this month, get your butt out of the way and act accordingly. Namaste.